A very good afternoon, everyone, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's behind-the-scene conversation with Nathaniel Sherborne. So Nathaniel is Senior Vice President and Managing Director for EMEA and Australia New Zealand at HX Expeditions, and he also leads global sales enablement for the brand. Since joining HX in 2023, he has played a central role in shaping commercial strategy across the key regions and strengthening partnerships with the travel trade. So, and today's session really comes at a significant moment for HX as the company prepares to celebrate its 130th anniversary in 2026. And in this conversation, I really hope we'll look into how this rich heritage continues to inform HX's approach, how the brand is navigating the future of expedition travel, and what distinguishes HX as one of the world's most respected expedition cruise companies. So we will explore as well the importance of strong travel trade partnerships and how they help drive success in this dynamic sector. So thank you, Nathaniel, for joining us today, and I really look forward to this conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hopefully. Yeah, great to be here and look forward to talking through all sorts of topics relating to HX.
Absolutely. So of course, we'll touch on the anniversary and HX, but I would like to start with you, really. So if you could tell us a little bit about your personal journey in travel and how you ended up working for HX and Expedition Cruise Company.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I'll keep it relatively succinct, but I started probably about 20 years ago in travel. I grew up in the mainstream cruise world. I was very fortunate to do a graduate scheme with the Carnival Group down in Southampton in the UK, where I was very fortunate over a 2-year period to go around many different departments, from operational departments to sales to planning to revenue management, basically lots of commercial departments. I went and worked on board for a couple of months. That was interesting. So I went and worked in the Caribbean for a couple of months. That gave me a snapshot into life at sea, which was a great experience. And essentially, through the course of kind of 15-16 years at Carnival, I worked for P&O Cruises, for Cunard, for Seabourn, for Princess, even Ocean Village Holidays, for those who can remember that brand many moons ago, and was very fortunate to work across very different departments. But mainly towards the latter end of my time at Carnival, I was in the travel agent space. So my role was centred around ensuring that the P&O Cruises brand and the Cunard brand was very prevalent within the UK market. Some big new ships coming into the market as well, and recognise the importance of the travel trade within that sector. I took a brief foray into retirement living in property for a couple of years, which was eye-opening and interesting after fairly bruising COVID period. But when I got a phone call about potentially getting back into the travel sector with a brand in expedition, I was super excited, and originally came in to look after the UK, but have over the course of the last couple of years grown my remit and just thoroughly enjoyed being part of the growth of the expedition sector, which I've been able to obviously take some experience from my prior world, but also learn a whole new world of experiences as well.
Which I think leads us to the next question quite nicely. So, you now lead one of the largest and most established expedition cruise companies in the world, I would say. So from a leadership point of view, how does running an expedition brand differ from running a mainstream cruise line? What are the sort of key things that you notice?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing that I found is that one of the biggest challenges within the mainstream cruise sector was the product being misunderstood. I think everyone had a vision of what a cruise was, and some people loved it and some people absolutely hated it and rejected it outright before actually even understanding what it looked like. And so ironically, there was a level of awareness. Whether it was a good level of awareness or not was another thing to concern, because there are lots of people that would happily cruise every year, and many that would never do it. So the big drive was about overcoming those misconceptions and trying to help people understand the value of a cruise proposition, and the experiences you can get. And obviously many different brands, many different experiences across the premium, mainstream luxury market. I think the really interesting thing about the expedition sector is that I don't think it was misunderstood. I just don't think it was known at all by a number of people. And just so that puts a completely different lens. And with the word cruise in it, then there's unfortunately potentially a negative connotation. And I think expedition can sometimes worry people in terms of, oh my God, am I going to be hiking the hills, climbing mountains? And so essentially what therefore that meant is that you have to think a little bit differently about the mindset of customers and what they are looking for from an experience, and try and therefore help both travel agents, but also our customers understand this amazing product. It is truly incredible what both HX, but many other operators do. But I think so many people just aren't even aware of the concept of it in the first place. And that presents a very different challenge in terms of building awareness of a sector in itself. And I think credit to the Expedition Cruise Network and credit to many operators around the world, the fact that Expedition Cruise feels like a sector of the holiday industry now is an amazing testament to where the sector is.
Brilliant. And I think as well, and I'm sure, we'll talk about it in a minute, the TV series that I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit more about is also helping with that misconception, or introducing the sector to the wider audience as has ever been, I suppose. So, and talking about HX, HX Expeditions has gone through a significant period of change since separating from Hurtigruten. And how would you describe the evolution of HX over the past few years and what it has meant for the team and the wider company?
Yeah, and look, I think it was probably long overdue in terms of its needs. It was becoming very clear, and had become very clear, that the proposition that the two brands were representing were very different. Hurtigruten, a fantastic brand that operates up and down the Norway coast, versus an in-depth 21, 22 night adventure of Antarctica, are just not only very different purchase considerations, they're at very different price points, and they're very different products. And therefore, the fact that they had historically been companies that operated in the same way, it was very, very clear that the level of service that was required, the systems that we required in order to be as effective as we wanted to be, and candidly, the work that we needed to do across the trade was just very different and needed dedication and expertise. We were, I think, as a business, spreading ourselves too thin and making too many compromises for each other when there needed to be specialization and clarity for individuals. I think everyone can probably appreciate if you concentrate on one thing, you have a much higher chance of success than if you're trying to juggle two. And therefore, being able to have teams that were dedicated to one brand gave us the opportunity to reassess what we wanted to be as a brand, how we wanted to act, how we wanted to work with the trade. But also it gave our teams the ability to focus on the things that were important to HX, whether it was the destinations that we went to, the propositions we offer on board, or fundamentally the challenges that presented themselves within our trade audience, so we could tackle them very specifically from an HX perspective. Because I did have sympathy for the teams, and I'd been in that world before, juggling brands. It was very, very hard to give the ability to specialize and give clarity of message when you're jumping from one brand to another. So I think, look, it made sure that we could really invest heavily in the expedition space and really focus both on our product and our offering, but also that we could then align ourselves behind being the world's most sustainable expedition cruise line, and really focus on what would be the path to get us there, rather than being potentially distracted by other things as well.
Which is actually, again, a quite nice lead into the next question. So because when you're separating and you are thinking about what's next, sometimes this helps you to identify or focus on what you want to be. It's a great opportunity for that. So what has that separation from Hurtigruten allowed HX to clarify or double down on in terms of the identity and direction you wanted to go as a company?
Yeah, I think it gave us clarity. of our
Okay.
direction. So very simply, we could talk about expedition cruise, whether it was Antarctica or Svalbard or the Galapagos Islands or Alaska. It gave us the ability to be really clear in the proposition that we delivered in all of those spaces, regardless of where of those destinations you picked as a guest of ours. And it also meant that we could set a benchmark as to how we wanted to treat our trade partners, how we wanted to operate, and the level of service that was commensurate from, frankly, a high ticket item. And that wasn't always available to do so. It meant that we could really double down on our expedition expertise. We could look to the future around where we wanted to continue to push the boundaries in that space, and think about the long-term partnerships that we wanted to forge in these key destinations, whether that be the Greenlandic communities, what we're doing with those communities in Svalbard and Aeko and Iato. It just meant we could really, really focus on the things that made a difference to our guests from a purely expedition perspective, and frankly, continue to drive a greater awareness of the sector as a whole, which I think will do all of us favours in the long term.
Brilliant. And so if you had to describe or to explain to travel advisor or a new partner to you what truly sets HX apart, what would you point out first?
I think there's probably two main things from an HX perspective. One, our focus on science and inclusion on board. I think we have a deep belief in protecting and supporting the areas that we go to, and making sure that we take those passengers with us on that journey and actively involve them on us. One of our key brand pillars is the fact that we are made for curious travellers. And I think that is the piece that we have invested time and energy in. We have given away nearly 2,000 cruise nights to active scientists conducting research. That is a brilliant win-win for us as a brand, because our guests can get involved in all of that activity, those citizen science projects that genuinely support research in these very climate important areas, but even to the extent of partnering with people like the University of Tasmania to ensure that we create dedicated university modules that guests can get involved with. And I think that focus on ensuring that we genuinely change the attitudes and approach of the guests that we take with us by taking them on an educational and science journey supported by experts in the field that we get on board, is just in the DNA of HX. And the best kind of way that I can talk about that from a kind of layman's term perspective is around kind of being part of the documentary. Actually get involved, literally be having your hands on the microscopes, taking the samples from the science boat and actively seeing the wonders of the ecosystems that we go to, as well as being really close to some of the communities that we work with. So I think that's one big one. I think the other one as well is choice. I think we're very fortunate that we have a range of our fleet and a range of destinations. So we feel that we can provide options, whether it's longer Antarctic journeys, whether it's the Galapagos Islands, whether it's Alaska, whether it's the Arctic, whether it be Greenland or Svalbard. We can give a small ship experience. We can give I use the term big ship very, very loosely because it's still a very small ship in the grand scheme of things, but it just gives people optionality in terms of what they're looking for from their expedition. And I think therefore choice at HX and flexibility is a really big one for us, that we can really tailor the journey and the experience to what guests are looking for.
Brilliant. And one thing I noticed is that HX very often tends to speak less about individual expedition teams and more about science programs and onboard science centers, which is quite different from many competitors in this space. Is that intentional?
I think I wouldn't say we consciously go out of our way, because we have an amazing expedition team. We've got some real characters. We've got some incredible experience in our team. And we actually obviously lean into being experts in expedition because we've been doing this for so long. And we do absolutely roll these guys out, whether it's at shows, on webinars, within trade events, because we do feel that they can bring such amazing intricacies and insight into the places that they've gone and how HX operates. I think what we do want to recognise, though, is that while we have some amazing individuals, we want to recognise that if that individual is not on your ship, we still have amazing experiences with our science centres, with our science programmes, and you would argue that when we look to try and bring newcomers into the brand, HX is definitely bigger than any kind of single personality. We do have a really great team ethic around HX, which I really love, that we're all trying to ensure that every guest's experience is as fulfilling and as amazing and we hold ourselves to high standards. And we just feel that we want that science lens to be more than just about kind of an individual that brings it to life, and that we can provide that experience whenever you travel with HX.
Okay, I think somebody had a question from the audience. Thank you, Noor, for your question. She's saying, hi, Aquila and Nathaniel. For HX guests, how does access to science before, during, and after an expedition shape their understanding of exploration and its role in future missions?
So I touched on this a little bit earlier. So one of the things we do specifically in Antarctica, and we're actually looking to roll this out to the Arctic as well, is that course that we've set up with the University of Tasmania, we basically send all guests before they embark on a cruise with HX to Antarctica. So the idea is that the learning starts before they've even embarked. Which is amazing, and the work that the University of Tasmania have done have shown that if you really tackle those kind of areas of the science and the nature and within obviously that part of the world, the long-term impact on people's attitudes and behaviour in terms of their protection and environment materially change. So we basically have two things. We give away a free course. They can also upgrade to create an actual university credit. If they want to as well, that goes towards obviously university qualification as well. So we've just upped the ante this year to make sure there's even more opportunities. Obviously, when they get on board, the magic happens. The science centres are the most comprehensive at sea. They're definitely the biggest at sea. And the scientists that take our lectures and talk people through what they're seeing under the microscopes is where they can really get an in-depth level of expertise and understanding of both the impact we're having on the environment and the work that we're doing to try and ensure that we protect these incredibly important parts of the planet. And then essentially afterwards, we follow up with more work from the University of Tasmania. We want their learning to continue, and we give them more opportunities to enhance their experience, as well as obviously memories of what they've done with. We obviously document everyone's voyage and what they've done on that voyage for them post voyage as well. So there's lots of areas that we keep that learning, and we just encourage people to continue that journey once they've left the ship as well.
And speaking about Antarctica and the Arctic, one of the things I noticed as well is that HX has been quite clear about staying a little bit longer and doing better in its core destinations, rather than necessarily constantly announcing new places that you go. But which I'm sure at some point will change as well. But why is this focus on delivering those destinations you know so well?
I think one of the things that we've recognised at HX is that, to my point earlier, I do believe we already have an amazing level of choice. Yep. We have 3 ships in Antarctica for 6 months, offering various different opportunities in that space. We take more people to Antarctica than anyone else in the world, which is amazing in terms of a reference point, and it's great that our guests are choosing us over and above others, which is amazing. We have covered the warm water cruising in the Galapagos. We do the Northwest Passage, an incredibly historic route where with only a small number of navigations in history, and then clearly places like Svalbard and Alaska, as well as Greenland and the British Isles. We've already got lots of breadth already, frankly, as a brand, and therefore I do feel that there's so much more opportunity for people. Now, let me be clear, there are definitely guests on board that are challenging us to go, well, I've ticked off all of those, where are you going to go next? But we just feel the growth of the expedition sector, it's still pretty unknown to a lot of people. to adding more complexity into that customer journey, and not just giving ourselves the opportunity to be really clear with the choice that we already have, as well as investing in making sure those expeditions are the best they can be, because there's always ways in which you can enhance and operate, is a focus for the moment. Because anytime you go somewhere new, and look, we've got a long list of places we'd love to go, it can sometimes distract us from our core part of our business. And I think there's just so much more opportunity for this sector with where we go currently.
Well, I mean, I just came back a couple of weeks ago from Norway, which was the inaugural trip for HX as an expedition. And it was an amazing trip. It was an incredible success. And I believe you will be continuing with these trips. It's not entirely true. There's only the destinations you have always been going to. Norway is a very familiar place for HX, perhaps not necessarily as an expedition, but it has been an amazing trip. The one thing that you touched as well on, and which I would like to talk a little bit more about, is the what stood out for me personally during that trip was how seamless and actually generally all-inclusive the experience felt. From the shore activities to drinks to Wi-Fi, and it was something new that HX implemented across all the fleet, I believe, last year. So, what was the thinking behind that decision?
I think it became abundantly clear that we needed to remove any barriers to this sector. I certainly recognised that there were still too many conversations that you had to have with guests about what this sector was, what the experience was. And by being really clear of providing a genuinely all-inclusive experience, just took one of those barriers away. To be able to not worry about the food offering, the excursion piece and things like that, and to concentrate on the adventure, and really immerse yourself in the science without having to worry about anything else that was going on board, we felt was really important. It was less about like moving into the luxury space or anything like that. We just felt that with the experience that we wanted to set ourselves up as, this should just really be a given. And customer experience these days, I think more and more is expected. And I think things like Wi-Fi, even in these parts of the world, and candidly, while we would love people to be experiencing the nature, we know how important social media is, user-generated content, influencers are of the future, and to be able to just seamlessly share those experiences with their friends and family to grow awareness of the sector and the amazing places we go to is no bad thing. And so again, putting any barriers in the way of people doing that seemed unnecessary. So it was much about trying to make sure that we treated our guests as we would expect them to be treated, and they could focus on the experiences that they were most likely there for, which was to see these either wonderful landscapes or incredible nature, or immerse themselves in the science and citizen science that we offer.
I think it is a brilliant decision because I don't remember now who said that. Actually, they were talking about the design, like the good design, you don't notice it because it works so well. And that is how I was comparing the experience to whoever, listened to me about my recent trip, because it did feel, seamlessly designed. And it is something not to be discounted, because it is for the client, I'm sure it is a great experience because they don't have to worry about all these other elements that you often have to. Moving on to slightly different topic, how HX works with the travel trade. So I have a theory, my personal theory, that there are 3 components for expedition cruise operators to get the relationships with trade right. So you have to have a great product, you have to be commercially attractive, and you have to be easy to do business with. And I think HX really does gets various things right. And I know that there has been a lot happening behind the scenes as well to improve the technology and systems and so on. So could you talk us through what HX has been working on here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and look, I think you're absolutely spot on, by the way. I think that
Yeah.
is a kind of holy trinity to get things right. I think in terms of the first two, I've been a big advocate. Like when I came into this
Mm.
business 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was blown away by the product
Yeah.
and the offering on board and the NPS scores we get. There are not many industries or services where NPS scores are in the 80s and 90s, especially
Mm.
when you're talking about an audience that can be from the US or the UK or from across Europe. So that was that. Firstly, that was amazing, and I was sort of talking a couple of years ago about this is the best kept secret. What? Why do more people not know about this? Because everyone loves it, just not enough people know about it. And so, but I also feel really importantly that this is a considered purchase. This is
Mm.
something that the travel trade need to work at, because this is not a kind of just someone's going to come in and it's going to be a really easy sell or be able to hold hands on it. And therefore, it's important that we reward people commensurately. I've obviously been on the other side of that when I've worked in mainstream brands where there would be people that would be just order taking. I just don't believe that's the case in this sector. So I've been very strong in the last 2.5 years, and I think it's been recognised that we need to reward people commensurately for their efforts and
Mm.
support in this space. And I think the third one is always the hardest one.
Yeah.
In terms of being easy to do business with. Again, when I came in, I felt there was a huge amount we could do as a brand, and we are still trying very hard. We've invested an awful lot of time and money into basically completely redoing our systems, even to the extent, and I think you experienced it, we've got a new onboard app, we've got
Mm.
new onboard systems. So this was a pretty much complete overhaul for HX as a business. Being very transparent, our legacy Hurtigruten systems were not built for an expedition brand.
Mm.
They were built to service a coastal product, and that just didn't work. That's been painful at times, and it's meant that we've not always been as easy as I would like us to be. And I actually aspire to be effortless to do business with.
Yeah.
And we are on a journey to get there because we're going to need to improve things like our training programs, which we do a lot of hard work on. But in the one thing that we have done, probably I think over and above lots of others, we have doubled down on the experiences. We have sent a record number of people on our ships in the last 2 years. We will do something that no other brand will ever do in May, and have nearly 500 travel agents on one ship out of Hamburg to give people a bit of an expedition in a bottle for a couple of days. Because I genuinely believe, while it's a huge investment to send people to the other side of the planet, to really understand this product, you have to step foot on a ship and understand the essence of it. And we're trying to find creative ways of doing that, but we've really invested in making that happen. We'll obviously look to supplement that with more tools and having systems that are easy to do. But in the other thing that we've done, because systems are one thing, we do appreciate that for a number of the travel trade, these will still be very rare bookings. We won't be doing one every day. We've very heavily invested in making sure we have on the ground support. So in London, we have a team of 10, 15 expedition travel specialists that have gone on our ships, that are available to help to hold people's hands. And we wanted to make it very, very clear that help was here, and that when those inquiries came in, whether it was a B2B guest, we were here just to make sure that we supported the trade to get that booking over the line. And so that's a really important part for me. And we've continued to make sure we're investing in people, and as well as obviously our trade sales team as well, led by Mark Walter, to ensure that we've actually got people on the ground that can be support with marketing campaigns, with co-op marketing, to ensure that we're giving assets and tools to help people just bring this amazing experience to life.
And I think that those listening who haven't joined yet the HX Facebook trade group, it's another great resource as well to learn about opportunities, to sign up to various things. And I think HX also offers very generous travel trade rates to travel on board the ships if you
Absolutely.
are not able to join the fam trips and so on. And it's a great opportunity to experience some of these amazing destinations on all-inclusive basis, being treated just as a guest. And I would highly encourage you to look it up when you get a moment. So saying all this, how do you see the role of the travel trade evolving for HX over the next few years?
It's only going to get more important, in my opinion. I really have a massive ambition to take the expedition sector into new levels, and the only way, candidly, that will happen is by more trade partners engaging with the sector. I think there is a huge number of people out there that have been on a safari or who have been on a tour, and may be a little bit apprehensive about the concept of an expedition cruise, but that can genuinely want to tick off the seventh continent, or to the Galapagos Islands, or do Alaska differently up to the Aleutian Islands, or go and see polar bears and things like that. So I just think that the only way that we're going to get that reach is by more of the trade engaging, and even those that have engaged already growing their expedition business. So I think, look, the expedition sector, it is complex. We're never going to get away from that. There is a level of consideration, and therefore having someone be able to walk someone through that, give them the confidence that they understand the product, will be absolutely critical in basically making sure that the travel trade will be the ones that have access to these guests who they know will be the right people. They'll know the people that were a bit more adventurous. They know the people who love that safari. This is just another version of it. And I think being able to explain not just the where you go, but why you should go there, and what the real enriching kind of experiences that you can have. I certainly think post-COVID, the people out there that are looking for what I call kind of experiential travel is only going to grow. And I can only see that with an aging population in the UK, with people probably having more time on their hands. I just think there's a huge role that the trade can play and continue to grow this amazing sector.
And to help you all to get more clients interested in expedition cruising, HX has also announced a major television partnership with ITV. So with Julia Bradbury's Wonders of the Frozen South airing, I think this weekend, the first episode, right?
It is, yeah. Valentine's Day on the 14th.
Oh, amazing. So for an expedition brand, this level of mainstream exposure obviously is a huge moment. So what does this partnership represent for HX? And how are you supporting the trade, who will be getting all these amazing inquiries knocking the door after the show screens on the ITV?
So look, I think one, it's amazing, like to get this level of, firstly, a broadcast like ITV coming to us and wanting to do something like that is a great testament to the sector itself and what it wants to be. And I think it just demonstrates HX's commitment to the UK market as well. This exposure is absolutely to grow awareness and to get people ringing up the travel trade and going, look, how can I get there? Julia spent 3 weeks on Fram, so each of the episodes will focus on, first episode will focus on the Falkland Islands, the second episode will focus on South Georgia, and then the third one will focus on the Antarctic Peninsula. And it will just hopefully, again, in absolute prime time spots, put these amazing adventures right in front of millions and millions of people, in obviously a very buoyant period, I hope, for many of us out there from a travel trade perspective. So look, there's no surprise. We did actually probably rush this and got her on board in November to be able to make sure this aired during February, which is, for anyone who's worked in that space, is no mean feat. So the fact that we're putting our adventures in a mainstream space, hopefully will just get the phones ringing, get people asking about Antarctica at a critical time when there's still opportunities to sail with us in 2026 in our anniversary year, but also being on sale right the way up to 2028 means even more people to be able to get something booked in the diary if they do need to do a bit of saving up. But it's just, we've seen over the years in other sectors the importance of this mainstream exposure for sectors. I just really hope this puts HX on the map, metaphorically and physically, to drive more business into many more travel agencies.
Well, for one, I cannot wait to watch it and look forward to following her journey with HX. And it has been amazing to see so much exposure for Antarctic and expedition cruising in the last couple of months. So as HX looks ahead to its 130th milestone this year, what excites you most about the future for the company?
I think the scale of the opportunity. I think the amazing product that we already have means that we can explore thinking about new itineraries. I've obviously talked about staying to our core and making sure that we strengthen our partnerships in the core destinations we go to. But as I look a little bit further out, there are still some amazing destinations on the list that we'd love to get to. But looking at how we potentially diversify our Antarctica deployments, going to some different places, how we can get more people to South Georgia, which really is the jewel in the crown, in my opinion, is another area we're looking at. But it's just more about how much faith that I have in this ability for this business to be at the forefront of those sustainable stories, and making sure we continue to push the boundaries in our sustainability credentials. I do feel we have a huge responsibility as a brand, but also as a sector, to think about the places that we go to. And I just feel the culture within the business that continue to challenge ourselves internally to retain that focus is great. And that gives me a lot of the faith that whatever we do within this business, it will be done with a lens of care, of giving back to the communities that we travel to, or providing the science industry and network with valuable data and information to ensure that we continue to give back wherever we go in the world. So I think, yeah, I think we've created a great platform in the last couple of years as we've split from Hurtigruten, and I've personally been delighted by the accolades that we've been able to receive, especially in the UK market for HX's position in the expedition space. But we're not going to settle for that. We're going to continue to want to make sure that, ironically, we've used the word mainstream a lot in this call. I really want the expedition sector to feel like it can take a space within the mainstream holiday market, because I genuinely believe, whether it's someone from a bucket list adventure or someone who can tick off every destination that many operators go to, the breadth of opportunity and the number of people that would love these experiences is exponentially bigger than where we are today.
So are there any specific areas you feel HX still has untapped potential?
I think we are always exploring how we can deepen our science ties in terms of our customer engagement on board. We'd love to get them more involved. Again, to the point of the question earlier, can we enhance the pre and post journey from a digital acquisition? Can we do a lot of studies, whether it's the environment, whether it's cloud tracking, whether it's wildlife spotting? There are so many opportunities to actually extend that and continue that mentality when people get off the ship. So I think we are only just starting to unlock the infrastructure and the science infrastructure we have on board. I think there's so much more we can do. It's always about the balance, because we've got to make sure we commit to these and do these things well. But to my point around things like the University of Tasmania, how could we enhance those courses to be then taking into account the work in the Galapagos Islands, or what's happening in Alaska, or the Northwest Passage? So there's lots of opportunity to give an even deeper and immersive experience in terms of our science programs on board, which is definitely a focus of ours, given that is really in the DNA of HX. I'll give you a great example. So on Fridtjof Nansen, one of our hybrid ships, we have literally worked with an organization called SOUP out of Germany to install water measuring equipment on the ship. So the ship is actually a sailing science boat, as well as obviously offering it. So that's only installed on Nansen at the moment, but that's picking up data continuously about waters, temperatures, microplastic, phytoplankton detail. So we could definitely look to expand that onto further ships to increase our data on an ongoing basis to help the community really understand the changing nature of the environments that we go to. So that's just a little example of how we've really doubled down in the science space.
Brilliant. And perhaps the final question from me, and I will invite the audience to ask the questions if they have any. So if someone was considering the first expedition cruise and feels overwhelmed by choice, because in some destinations I think there is a lot of choice, what do you believe HX offers that is truly difficult to replicate?
So I think we use this phrase that we've also been working with our trade partners around, the perfect balance. So we feel that we give this perfect balance of comfort. So we have ships that have multiple dining destinations, that do have spas, that have infinity pools, that have really lovely lounges and very comfortable suite accommodation, as an example, and really feels like what I would call that kind of safari lodge, real luxurious base camp that you come back to after a day of kind of expedition activity. So that kind of gives that comfort as kind of one element of it. The second element around that perfect balance is our sustainability credentials. So making sure that actually guests can see and feel the commitment to our sustainability activities, the scientists, the ornithologists, the glaciologists that we have on board. These are full-time people that are genuinely invested in their field of expertise, and we're just supporting them to get them to the places to conduct their research, and the guests can get involved in that. So that gives a really great example of kind of two elements of the balance. And then the third one is adventure. The range of activities, whether it's kayaking, whether it's camping on Antarctica, whether it's hiking, we can absolutely appeal to every walk of life. The number of times I get questions about, oh, I really want a really adventurous, almost push the boundaries of expedition for me, versus, or am I going to be okay getting on Antarctica? Is this going to be just too strenuous for me? The beauty about the perfect balance for us from an adventure perspective is you can do it your way. If you really wanted to, you could literally step into a Zodiac, sail across a glorious Antarctic stretch of water and step foot on the seventh continent and say you did it and get back on the ship. Or we'll take you and you can camp overnight and the ship will sail off into the distance. So I think that's what I think is the perfect balance for us, that will give people confidence that they can do an expedition cruise the way they want to, and each of those areas will give them an amazing experience.
Brilliant. Well, I think that completes the questions from my side, and I would like to invite the audience, if they have any questions, to feel free to ask them now. You need to use the chat, the Q&A section on the Zoom. So I will give you a minute or so just to see if there are any questions, comments, if you feel there's anything else we should be covering. Nope. I'm just waiting for 1 second, Nathaniel, and then we'll, yeah. Not really. Well, okay. In that case, a huge thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I appreciate
it was brilliant. I really enjoyed our conversation and I learned heaps. I hope the attendees did so as well. And thank you, Nathaniel. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.